From deep within our hidden volcano laboratory, a podcast about gaming from the people who bring your games to life. These are your core elements. Core Elements, episode 61, recorded on May 7th, 2014. I am Wes Wilson, and I don't have a Spencer with me, but I do have two guests this evening. I have Falco and Tyler from Elysian Dreams.
What up?
And you guys are Huntsville natives, and I met you this very week.
Just met this guy, that's right. And we're already on the show, man. I'm honored.
We're like best friends and stuff now.
We are, man.
We're drinking a couple times.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that ES has ever been on any kind of like video feed or podcast or anything. So you're actually taking our virginity here. So it's
all right.
I'll never forget you, man.
I promise them all I'll be gentle. So you guys have been making a game for how many years now?
Oh, that question.
Yeah.
All right. So
how long we've been programming, or how long we've actually been?
How long have you been working on this game?
So this game, we have a series called Adventures in Game Development that's been detailing everything, and I'm sure you've seen that it's gone back now. What, like 6 years?
Yes.
7 years.
7.
Yes.
So the reason I don't particularly like that question is because that series started, and when we started this game, we were just out of high school. We didn't know how to code. We didn't have a team. We didn't have artists. That was the day we literally were like, holy shit, man, let's make a game. So like from that point to where we are now, yeah, it's been almost 7 years. But like you have to factor in that we learned how to code, we learned how to do art and music, and it's been like a very much like
work on a team,
learning everything as we go. Yeah. So it's not like we were established developers when we started. We had an idea and we stuck with it, and we learned how to develop the game through that.
Been our first love, I guess. A lot of people ask, is this our first project? Have we done anything else? Like, no, this is it for us so far.
Yeah, it's our first love, yeah.
And you guys have been billing it as a Dreamcast game.
Yeah, well, that's complicated. So it originally started off in my parents' attic. I was like 17 or something, and we were both like teenagers. I learned how to code when I was 14 on the Sega Dreamcast. That was like the first homebrew indie scene I was ever involved with, right? And so, like, from there, I was like, I really want to make a Dreamcast game. And we started this game and this engine on the Dreamcast only. And then, like, as we got better, as we started coding more, as our videos started getting popular, we're like, okay, obviously we better move to the PC. And over time, like, developing the infrastructure to seamlessly support our engine on the PC and the Dreamcast, like, it's really evolved to where now we're Dreamcast, we're Ouya, we're Android, iOS. Windows, Linux, OS X. We're pretty much everything, but like the thing that has still calls a Dreamcast game.
I stuttered on internet there.
We're okay with it. We're still okay with it.
I stuttered on internet there.
Calls a Dreamcast because it was our first one, and it's marketed as that. And I think we probably have more publicity for that than anything else at this point. But it's gonna be on everything, including your fridges, apparently.
Do you feel like platform whores? Do you feel like that?
Yeah, a little bit. I honestly, like, yes. It's kind of honorable to me. Like, I'm an engineering kind of guy. I'm a computer engineering student. Like, I love tinkering with hardware. Like, to me, as many platforms as I can whore myself onto, the better. I just love, like, the aspect of, like, okay, let's get this running on this. Let's get this running on this. So, like, I don't know. I view it as very much a positive thing.
And you guys built your platform from scratch. Like your engine.
Yeah, we did. That's why it's taken us so so we built our own engine, and we built our own multi-platform 2D toolkit, which is now technically 3D, that allows us to build these 2D/3D worlds on also Windows, Linux, and OS X. And it's actually integrated with the Dreamcast, like Unity now, to where you can push play and it will send your level to the Dreamcast. Yeah. So I mean, in all seriousness, we took the most roundabout, like, around the curve way of making a game that anyone ever has done.
So,
but I mean, But in the end, though, like we did it the way we wanted to do it, and especially now our engine is like really powerful, and it's finally starting to show. Because for most of the history of our game, it just looked like just a basic 2D platformer. You know, it wasn't really anything special, but like.
A lot of people didn't understand that we had to build the engine and the toolkit to be able to make the game. So during the whole process of developing these tools, a lot of people are like, well, where's the gameplay? Or like, you know, what stage is the game at? Why aren't you done with the game yet? And it's like, well, we got to have a world for it to work in first.
Yeah, we got a lot of shit for that, for why is it taking so long? But now we really don't get that anymore, because now people are seeing like dynamic 3D lighting, bump mapping, specular mapping, dynamic shadows and particles.
Blows them
and for being given so much shit for so long, it's just really rewarding for people to finally see like, oh, I see what they were going for. That's why it took a while.
And your fans have actually been keeping up with this because you guys have been doing a YouTube series as well.
They have, yeah. Actually, that's why people know who we are. We are accidentally famous on YouTube. Actually, we're coming up on 9,000 subscribers. It's actually a really funny story, man. So, do you remember? Did you ever play God of War? Did you ever play God of War for the original PlayStation 2?
No, I never owned a PlayStation 2, believe it or not.
So they were one of the first games to do, like, to my knowledge, where like you beat the game and you unlock like the making of, like, here's the developers like walking through, like yeah. So when we first started meeting in my mommy's attic and started working on ES, we're like, you know what? Let's start recording this so when people beat ES, we'll have like a God of War thing, you know? It's like, it was stupid. Like, we were in my mom's attic and like we barely knew what we were doing, but like one of us was like, dude, let's just throw this on YouTube. And we did, and it just started to take off. Like, people started subscribing. I don't know if they were like, man, these guys suck so much, let's just watch where they go. Or I don't know, but
the project just crash and burn. Like,
we really like gained a lot of momentum from that over the years, and like we have a pretty big fan base now, and people know who we are without actually having a product yet. And it was purely by accident originally, and then it evolved into a full web series, Adventures in Game Development, eventually. But yeah, it was an accident.
and you say you don't have a product yet. Do you like have a rough estimate of when you're going to have this product finished?
Yeah, actually, that is a function of our Kickstarter that we are prepping our asses off for this summer. So with funding, it should only be maybe like another year with funding, so that we'll be able to like pay the art and stuff. So we've done like so much coding and development now on the engine and stuff. It's more or less done. Now it's a matter of like in-game assets and audio, and it's a very ambitious game. It's a really big scale. Yeah, and now we need assets to actually do something with the engine. So right now, Tyler and I are paying 3 artists actually out of our pocket. We have our own art sub team that actually really talented guys we found on the Pixel forums and stuff, and they're just cranking out tiles, man, for the engine. And we gave them like the level editor, the engine, and they're just cranking it out now.
And you mentioned that you're making a 3D 2D game, yes. and I watched a little bit of Chapter 22, and I was watching all about how you made this like lighting system for your 2D game.
Yes.
Yeah, that episode.
So. Yeah, man. Like I was telling you the other day, I don't know how drunk we were, but like the 3D aspect of ES was actually, it was a complete accident that we stumbled upon it. So it was a 2D game, and I set up to develop this lighting engine because, like, god damn it, I wanted our 2D game to be more than just, oh, it's a 2D game. I wanted people to look at it and be like, holy shit, there's really like substance here. They're really like taking the 2D game RPG genre to another level. So like dynamic lighting was one way we wanted to do this. Well, as I started working on the dynamic lighting engine, all the math and equations are in 3D. Basically, I would f it up and it wouldn't work, and I'd be like, the light is supposed to be in 3D. Can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry, I had a little twitch there.
Oh, you're fine. So I started, when I would screw up the lighting, I would move the camera to where the light would be in 3D just to debug, okay, what is the light actually seeing? And I would do that, and I'm like, dude, we kind of have a 3D game, man. Like, look at that. And
I know, we were just astounded, like, wow,
we're both like,
awesome.
We're like, holy shit, like, it's kind of already 3D, man, because we, you know, like, you have like a bridge or something in 2D where it's actually layered on top of the ground. So we supported multiple layers, and then when you take a step back and look at that, it's starting to look like a 3D structure, and we just
everything just kind of
stumbled
like
upon that and ran with it.
The other angle.
And it's kind of funny because you actually had to debate certain things. Like when you were dealing with static sprites, that's one thing. But when you're dealing with three-dimensional lit objects, that sort of changes the whole dynamic of how you're handling those sprites.
Really
we have
does,
like those conversations every weekend. Like, okay, how are we going to handle this? Like, something new comes up. Like,
and your people, and your sprites are actually walking at like what, about a 60-degree angle to the ground?
Yes. That's correct. The ground is like this. The sprites are something like that.
That's kind of awesome. Well, we will talk.
Right, yeah.
We will talk a little bit more about your game, but first, lab notes. So I wish I could say I've been playing a lot of games this week, but I mostly have been making excuses for playing games. I picked up, as I said last week, I picked up Assassin's Creed Revelation. I've been poking around a little bit with that. I actually picked back up Guild Wars 2 because I was like, okay, I was enjoying WildStar. Why don't I go ahead and dig into Guild Wars 2 again? Because that's the MMO I really want to play. And sadly, like, there was nothing going on the server. Like, they shut down. They ended their first chapter of like the story. They had a living story going on, and they ended the first chapter of it, and they didn't move into the next chapter yet. Basically, all they did was they kind of said, "Okay, we're done." And they're going to start the new one soon, and they're making all kinds of changes to the system. Like, for instance, the Guild Wars 2 zones aren't like world-oriented now. Like, they merge. If there's not enough people in the zone, they merge it from other. You know what I'm saying? They're not
combined realms and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that,
And there's some good stuff going on there, and they're planning on the next chapter, and they're talking about an expansion, and I'm excited about Guild Wars 2, but it was kind of disappointing to log on and not have anything that was like a world event. That game has been really good about always feeding you stuff that you can do right now that's different from the stuff you could do the last time you were on. And so it was, I got to tell you, it made me kind of sad, and also made me feel really kind of trite. I was like, wait, you're not giving me new content and I can't have fun in this game? I was like, oh man. So, but other than that, I really have not been playing all that much. I poked around with this and that, but I for some reason, well, I mean, and then again, it's also only been like 5 days, and then I've been doing a lot of work with Minecraft this week. I'm actually going to be. I'm going to be starting an FTB series with or not FTB. Pardon me. It's Crack Pack series with the. When we rented the house up at Boston, we called it the Crack House.
That's awesome.
And we had bands come and play. It was pretty awesome. Anyway, but I'm going to be doing some FT or some Crack Pack with the Minecrackers, and that should be a good time. And I've been doing wheeling and dealing, trying to be a businessman. We met at an International Game Developers Association meeting. Huntsville is starting its chapter back up. Right. And so I've been doing a little bit of detective work on that, and I'm going to try to be an active supporter of the IGDA in Huntsville. But
nice. We're going to try to be active participators.
Yes. But we're like de facto board members, right? Because we were the first.
I believe we are.
The first 10.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think we are.
So, Falco, what have you been playing this week?
I actually have been playing A Link to the Past on Super Nintendo.
There's no shame there. There's no shame there.
It's kind of a funny story, man. This part I am actually ashamed of. Like, we're making this 2D influence game, influenced by like Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, like the greats. Yeah. And people always ask me, like, so what do you think about A Link to the Past? And I've always been like, I never beat it. And they would always be like, what the fuck, man? You're making like Elysian Shadows? You never played A Link to the Past? And I'm like, No, so I'm doing homework, man. I'm trying to.
It's one of the strangest installments of the series.
So I'm loving it, actually. I mean, it's amazing what they've been able to do with like such just, especially for ES. Like, you know, there's RPGs that are really good story, really good combat, but I think RPGs in general kind of suck at the environmental interaction factor, which is what a game like Zelda is really good at. Like, you can cut down trees, cut down grass, you can blow things up. And if you talk to our artists, I am just like hammering that on them. I'm like, when you build tiles, when you build an area, you need to make goddamn sure I can interact with that area. I want you to be able to cut down this grass. I need you to be able to bomb this. And I think that's kind of from my
tree,
Zelda
knock it over. I mean, all of that.
Well, that's, you know, I played a little bit of the Lord of the Rings online beta, and that was the main complaint I had, was like, I don't really feel like I'm interacting with the world at all. I can't.
Right. Yeah, you're just like walking through it. You don't feel like you're actually part of the world. Yeah, exactly.
That experiencing.
I feel like a lot of games are like that. I mean, you can have a beautiful world, but if it's, you know, if there's no way for you to interact with it, it's not as immersive.
Yeah. Are you guys doing anything, like, are you putting any like weird Easter eggs in there? Like
oh yeah.
yes.
We have a lot of Easter eggs planned there.
We got a Google Doc of every time we come up with an idea, we throw something in there for it.
Because like, I designed a Minecraft level once, and like we hid signs in various places, you know, like just weird. So if people wanted to explore, you know, and go off the beaten path, they could find things.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No, man. Have you? This will be like a little bit of a spoiler, but have you seen what's the with the dude Tyler? What's The Big Lebowski? Have you seen that?
Yes.
Oh, God, yeah, The Big Lebowski.
So one of our Easter eggs we'd always planned was to have a Big Lebowski like Easter egg. So like the dude is going to be a recurring character in the taverns. It's like you're in a medieval tavern, but there's always this same guy in a bathrobe in these taverns drinking a White Russian, and like at first you're like, what the fuck's this dude's deal? But then like later on you're like, this same guy's in this tavern too, and you start to put it.
And then you start seeing him, and he's like,
the whole game.
"That's just your opinion, man."
Oh yeah.
So have you? Do you think that you're doing, like, is doing A Link to the Past like helping you sort of work on what you're working on? Like, do you think that you, in order to do the whole 2D thing, you're deliberately going back to play older games and mine them?
Actually, yes, that's exactly what we're doing, and I'm actually making our artists. I'm like, you have to play this. You have to play this. Because there's a lot of those games that you don't really remember because they weren't that memorable. But then there are games like Chrono Trigger or A Link to the Past where they did things so well that like they're still playable now and they're still enjoyable. And we really want to capture aspects of those games.
Yeah.
With like the limited hardware and resources they had back then, you know, we could take that a step further.
Yeah.
So our ego comes into play. We're like, dude, we have like 400 megahertz on what you have. 10 times your video RAM. We better be able to do better than you can.
So let me ask you this, though. Like, I know there's a lot of games that don't translate well. Like Ultima games. Don't get me wrong. They were a ball when they came out. But trying to play them nowadays, I think audiences have kind of evolved past that whole, like, massive world where you have to work to get, 20 blocks away. Is there anything from some of those old games that, like, you're looking at and going, no, we can't put that in our game. We cannot bring that in.
Really didn't want an overworld like Final Fantasy does, where everything's kind of shortcuts.
Yeah.
We wanted to be able to let the players.
That's kind of annoying, and it breaks immersion, we think.
Yeah.
And we wanted the players to be able to experience all these different areas to their fullest. We're making these huge sprite sheets for all the different levels and the diversity and the immersion. I mean, you'll have to walk from point A to point B. Eventually, we were going to offer some sort of like fly ability. You go back and revisit.
Yeah, that was the one thing. Like the really old RPGs, you always had to walk. Like eventually, you will get some spell or some vehicle to where it's not. Even if it's like fly from Pokemon, you're not going to have to walk everywhere, back to every town.
Yeah.
That's definitely not something that we wanted to do.
But I mean, especially we put such an emphasis on exploration too, that like if we cut to an overworld like that, like we're taking away so much of that. I mean, you were talking about kind of going off the beaten path and finding this and that. If you cut to an overworld every time, like there is no unbeaten path. Like,
right.
Well, and I'll tell you, and this might be a weird idea. A friend of mine proposed once that the mini-map was the downfall of all role-playing games. That once the mini-map came up, you began to get a much different understanding of spatial awareness, and you everything changed. There was no exploration. Like if you think about old EverQuest style exploration where you didn't really know where you were, there wasn't like a tool to provide you an easy reference point for how far you were from A and how far you were from B.
Yeah.
And I still think that's an interesting idea.
That is interesting. I've never heard of it put like that, but I mean that makes a lot of sense to me.
And I've only resurrected it on I think about 5 of these episodes. So, so have you been? Go ahead.
It is funny you mentioned that because back in the day, I did have a mini map in ES, and I got rid of it because we couldn't play secrets anymore. Like we couldn't have like you could walk through this wall and go over here because I mean it would show up on the damn mini map, and I was just like, I didn't think about it in the broader sense like that, but now I think about it from like a level design perspective, it was kind of a nightmare as far as secrets go.
Yeah.
And exploration.
I think it breaks the immersion too. I mean, like if you have, say you're going through a new area and the whole time they're staring up at that little corner over there to kind of find a path and seeing the boundaries of the map, and they're not looking at the area and experiencing and looking over here and everything, like it would break that a little bit too.
But it's also one of those things, like it's hard to justify stepping away from it because the minimap provides so many benefits in other ways. I don't know. I think that gaming is evolving in some very peculiar ways, and I wonder how much nostalgia like makes us wish for things that we can't really tolerate anymore as gamers. Do you know what I mean?
I guess you got to ask yourself too, like, what was it that the minimap was providing that was so groundbreaking that you thought you had to have it?
Yeah.
Could we represent that in a different way or give that information to the player without causing all of those issues that we were talking about too? That's challenge.
I think with your style of game, like the minimap is the map. Like there's really not any need for an additional thing. You kind of already have it. But there's other things that, for instance, I think the whole like coin op experience, the multi-death over and over again kind of thing is there's a certain type of gamer that can appreciate it because we've evolved as gamers past some of that, and it's a particular style of gaming now as opposed to something that we want in all games. Okay, I'm babbling. So Tyler, what have you been playing?
Well, I'm always doing some sort of research. Like, we both got the new Legend of Zelda for the 3DS at the same time. So we were playing through that together and noticing, hey, like they did this pretty cool and things like that. I recently got Bravely Default for the 3DS. I picked it up when I found out Squeenix made that. I picked that up a couple of days ago. I guess it's been out for a while. But I've been really disappointed in the more modern Final Fantasies for consoles. And I was looking for something to kind of get my mindset back in like the RPG stuff, since we're actually doing a lot more combat and gameplay now. Kind of getting back to an RPG, playing with different classes and stat balances, seeing what I like and don't like about those kind of games. I mean, I actually have somewhere. I had the Final Fantasy VIII and Legends of Dragoon sitting on my desk from last week. I was playing through those and I'm making old saves. Kind of just, I guess, getting in that research mode. Other than that, I really haven't played much. I have been playing the WildStar beta, though. I paid for my pre-order copy of that as soon as they offered it. And then they offered 25% off, but whatever. So I've been playing that on the weekends, checking it out. I wasn't a big NCSoft fan with Guild Wars. I tried to get into it.
Yeah.
It most likely was due to the relationship I had at the time with the female that was playing it. But I come from WoW, so it was hard for me to kind of get into the weapon is your abilities kind of thing like that.
Well, I actually love the idea of that, and I enjoyed Guild Wars 1, except I was kind of all PvE oriented, and Guild Wars 1 had some of the worst beginning PvE I've ever experienced. But I picked up Guild Wars 2, and I'm still convinced it's one of the finest MMOs that's ever been made. I love it.
Got it installed.
But I have been playing the WildStar beta as well. As a matter of fact, I was going to do a Let's Play with my wife, but the only time, like, playing with games with my wife on the weekends is really difficult with 3 kids.
Oh man, I can only imagine.
and so like I finally talked them into getting me and my wife onto the developers server. Like, I'm no longer on the beta server. I'm on the developers server.
Nice.
But the only problem is they're like, you can't film anything and no screenshots. And I'm like, man. But it is kind of cool.
They're about to do their open beta and stuff too. I guess they're getting ready to do all that open invites. And
Yep. But I wonder how douchey it'll be to go, hey, look, I know you put me on the dev server, but can you move me back over? You know, I mean, I wonder.
I know.
Like, to film this. I wanted to kind of help promote.
But
the Minecraft and everything has been having. I feel like WildStar has a lot of. I feel like the action RPG elements of WildStar are reminiscent of Guild Wars 2, and I feel like there's a lot of good things associated with it. I love the art style. I love the animation of the characters. I love the color palettes. I love the
colors are just crazy.
Yeah.
Like some of the different levels and like the art, I'm just like, this is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Like, it's just very creative.
There's a lot of really fantastic stuff in WildStar, and at the same time, and I fessed this up last week, I'm MMO'd out. The whole idea of sitting there and reading quests and going and doing them, I talked about evolving past games. I'm worried I'm close to evolving past the MMO. I walked past.
I find myself there.
I
played WoW since the beginning. Like,
I did too. We cut our subscription about 8 months ago. And we paid from open to about 8 months ago. And then additionally, like, but I got to tell you, I saw ESO, Elder Scrolls Online, and I just walked right past it. I was like, I've played you. I see you. I'm done with you. And like,
I don't know what they're doing there. Like,
did you try it out?
I tried to, first of all. I filled out their whole, like, oh, would you like to try the game? You know, what are the ones that you beta tested? And I checked everything on that list because I had.
Yeah.
And they never replied, never sent me anything. But I still watched all their videos and tried to stay up on the news. And the more I heard about it, the more I was like, oh, wow, that's not really what I was looking for. You know, like, I'm not even, I guess, that huge in MMOs right now. WildStar's got my attention and I will play it casually. But everything that I saw about so I was like, that's not.
Yeah. And it's kind of heartbreaking. Like, I wonder, like, and I actually think that, okay, I'm going to toot my own horn because you guys haven't heard this before, but about a year and a half ago on this very show, I was like, look, here's the wave of the future. You create an MMO, you create development tools, and you have crowd-sourced content with a moderator. You get people to create dungeons, you get people to create content, and then you hire a moderator to go through that content and get good stuff. And what are they doing with EverQuest? Exactly that. So I'm pretending in my heart that they listen to me.
They listen to you, yeah. They were right here like, damn, man, I got to do that.
Too bad I can't ask for royalties.
I know, man.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Is there anything in the near future that you guys are kind of looking forward? By the way, I picked up one other game this week. I got Titanfall on release and had a blast with it. And I am not a military shooter guy. I normally do not care for that style of game, but I had a blast with Titanfall. And so I was like, okay, I put it down for about 3 weeks. I'm going to pick it back up. I'm going to play it. And I got my ass handed to me repeatedly, mercilessly. And now I'm looking at it resentfully. Like I resent the game now.
That's why I don't play the shooters online, I'm not going to lie. Or StarCraft. I had to move away from that. My anger management couldn't handle it. It's not healthy.
But have you guys got anything on the horizon that you're looking at? Anything that you're interested in?
You know, I'm waiting still for that one game that makes me want to buy a PS4. Like, I have a PS3, I love it. I'm a really big console gamer, but I'm still waiting for one. Maybe the new Uncharted. I'm really into Uncharted, but I'm waiting for the game that's like, all right, damn it, I need to get a PS4 now. But
is Watch Dogs Watch Dogs not going to do it for you?
It might actually. I'm not sure. I can't tell yet if it's going to be like a huge like amazing game or if it's kind of gimmicky. I can't tell you. I'm going to wait for the reviews on that one.
I bought one because I use my PS3 for Media Center and everything like that, and it came out Christmas time, bonus money. I was like, pick one up. And I played Knack, I played like Second Son, everything that they had to offer up to this point. And honestly, what really kills it for me, I guess, is the fact that I still don't have my DLNA support. Like, if I had known that this entire time, because I still use my PS3 every night instead of my PS4, I probably would have just held off because I've yet to play a game that is the deal breaker.
Now, what's going on there? Explain that to people who don't know what that is.
I have a home media server, and I use that for recording shows and stuff like that. And I have a projector in my living room. Everything's all mounted up, and I use my PlayStation as an interface for that, for Netflix, for gaming, everything. It was the single unit that I had in my living room. And
are you using PS3 Media Player?
No.
Okay.
I'm using T-Versity is what I was using on my PC, and it interfaces with DLNA. And I bought a PS4, and of course it does Netflix and Hulu and all that kind of stuff. Fantastic, it's great. I cannot connect to my computer to stream content, and that is the deal breaker for me. It's just I cannot believe they don't support it.
Why do you think they did that?
Best that I hear, like reading, because they just announced like this huge update, the one that they've been like, we'll do it ever since release. They've been waiting, and they finally announced it. And what they released was all these like video editing tools for people who are capturing their game for uploading to Twitch and stuff like that, being able to edit it on the console without having to try to offload it and do all that and then upload it. It was a huge video editing suite, and they're like, well, where's our DLNA? Where you've been saying this is coming. I guess the next big step for Sony, and this is just internet speculation, is that they're looking at doing like digital rights content, making sure that what you're streaming isn't something that you've torrented or that it's from rights.
Why would they do that? Have they not learned?
I don't know.
Has no one learned their lesson? Nobody makes money off content management other than Apple.
No.
Nobody.
And it kind of broke my heart a little bit because I'm like, so then I unplugged my PS4, unplugged my PS3 back in. So that's what I use. That's what I use for my media every night. I don't know.
It's baffling.
It was good, but
and that's just it. I mean, if I were to download media and stream it to my PlayStation using PlayStation Media Streamer, I would be very disappointed if I bought a PS4. And I've actually, I joke around with my wife that we need to get the kids a PS4 for Christmas. It seems logical, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm in. We'll back you up.
But at the same time, for the most part, my PS3 is serving me well. And I'm with you, Falco. I don't see the games that make me need to buy the new system. I'm mostly a PC gamer. I'm using my PS3 for Netflix, for hypothetically taking streamed content from my computer, and the PS4 isn't going to help me with those things any more than the PS3 would. So I have not really put one on my wish list yet, and probably won't until that killer game that I want to play that I can't play otherwise.
I'm not going to lie, I'm still not going to get an Xbox One, so I guess I just went ahead and bit the bullet and got the PS4.
Yeah. Well, and I know a lot of people that have done that. And PS4 numbers, and we'll talk a little bit about this in the news, but PS4 numbers have been good. They passed Wii U sales.
Right.
There's some good stuff going on there. Sony recently announced that indie gaming is the lifeblood of the gaming industry.
Which is nice.
It's good news for us.
It really is.
That is so surprising because really the lifeblood has seemed to be, Call of Duty and all that nonsense.
Oh, God.
And so I think there's some good stuff there. But let's move on. You're Wake up! Ow! So, I wish I could say that there was a lot of amazing news for me to tap into this week, but it's been kind of a weird week, and mostly what I kind of looked at were the death knells of certain things. For instance, the Wii U has reported 6.17 million units sold, right?
Wii U sucking is big in news right now.
Well, and I talked a little bit last week, I talked with you at the meeting about how Nintendo has kind of like ostracized its YouTube people who are trying to do Nintendo YouTube content, and that might be hurting Nintendo sales. Well,
that's such a bad idea.
They reported 6.17 million units have been sold, but they also announced their third straight year of losses with Nintendo. And that blows my mind with the kind of fanboyish nature behind everything associated with Nintendo. They could take a dump on Link and sell it for 3 million copies. You know what I mean?
They did sell it.
And it baffles me that you could screw this up, and evidently Nintendo is doing something wrong. Now, I talked a little bit last week about how Nintendo was ostracizing its YouTube people. Additionally, they might not have correctly guessed what the next generation of gamers want. They won with the Wii U. With the regular Wii. They came up with this outrageous idea. It worked. People bought tons and tons of them. They didn't play them, but they bought them. And it failed with the Wii U. I like the idea of the Wii U. I have poked around with it, but I'm not sure it's as compelling as they would have hoped. What do you think it'll take to get Nintendo out of this slump?
I don't know. I don't know that I know how to get them out of the hardware slump. I'm kind of rooting for them not to. In my mind, the best thing could happen. I am a Nintendo fan. Like, I love Nintendo. I always play Mario. I always play Link. I don't own a Wii U. I really don't want one. But I'm at the point where it's like the Dreamcast, man. I would rather play Mario and Zelda and all that on the PS4 now, on a console with better capabilities, better pretty much everything hardware-wise than the Wii U, which just has the gimmicky gamepad. Like, in my opinion, that's the best case scenario. That's where like all the gamers win, is if Nintendo just focuses on software like Sega did. I know a lot of Nintendo people don't want to hear that, but that's kind of what I'm hoping does happen.
I don't know what other direction they could take, really. I mean, I know they don't make money on any of their hardware sales. I mean, that could be right there where they're losing all that money, pushing these units, trying to get them out there, trying to get those first-party games in people's hands. But I don't know. They may just make more money just making the games, going back to what they were good at that way.
Do you think, though, I do think there is a place for the family-friendly gaming machine. Like the whole, I'm buying this for my kids. They can't ever use it to access the internet. They're not going to have people screaming obscenities into their headsets because they got shot in the head by Mario. There's something to be said for the whole idea of a family-friendly console. Do you think that they could do this maybe without being quite so proprietary?
I mean, I agree with that. Actually, my grandparents have a Wii U, or a Wii. And we got my mother one a couple of years ago. And they actually used to play Animal Crossing together, and it got my grandfather to come out from working so hard in the yard and the garden and stuff to come in, relax, and play that. And they started really getting into it. And their other grandkids would come over and they would sit down and play, and it had something in common for them to do. I don't know of any other system, I guess, that could do that without, like, for PlayStation, there is that kind of community where people are yelling, especially, I guess Microsoft's known for the anger, people breaking headsets and all kinds of crazy stuff. But, I'm also not big for, censoring a lot of people. So, I guess if they had separate communities for those kind of games to where they could have the family-oriented atmosphere where maybe it would only attract that kind of people, or there was some way to censor it, I don't know. I mean, I guess they could do it that way. I don't see any existing structure for that.
Well, and I thought that the whole idea of the Wii codes, where basically you have
friend codes,
the friends code, that was a good idea, and actually like the whole what was it, the like Wizardry 101 and all that kind of stuff. Like a lot of those games have set commands, like like you can't type whatever you want into chat.
Right.
But there are these wide arrays of things you can put in.
Fantasy stuff.
Kind of like how Hearthstone only has like 6 or 7 things you can say. And I actually read an article this week that talked about how the fact that Hearthstone only had these complimentary things that you could say to each other, you could either be self-derogatory, say, oops, that was a mistake, or you could say, good game, like was actually helping the community by forcing them not to be douches to each other, And
I guess that's one way to do it.
And I think there's something to that. Like I think that like having people grow up in games where they have finite amounts of interactions with one another is probably the best thing, because otherwise people are going to draw penises in chat. So and so the idea of Nintendo hardware going away is unappealing to me as a parent, because I certainly don't want to put my kids on multiplayer PlayStation or Xbox stuff. Yeah. So I don't know. I think Nintendo needs to work on. Do you think maybe the goal should be not challenging the hardware? Should they bring the console price down to $99 and
that might do it. Yeah.
Not challenge the hardware, make it easily accessible and family friendly, and then move their products in that way?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I guess I agree with like the way they were doing the speech and stuff like that. I don't know anyone else that was doing that besides Hearthstone. I don't know if they would ever be able to do that though for $100. Like, I mean, they would definitely be very well knowing that they're taking those losses.
Well, let's be honest.
The software might be where they're making the money to make up for it.
That's what it is.
Yeah, if they can do it.
So you continue making the Wii U, or the Wii, pardon me. The Wii U step up was unnecessary. You make a Wii Plus. You up the graphics a little bit. You keep the hardware interface. You allow still to do the sideways kind of, controller thing, and then you make really good Mario and Link games. I bet I won't get paid for that idea either.
Probably not, man.
I mean, I guess my biggest complaint with that too, for the original Wii, was that there wasn't like the Motion Plus. That was something I was so excited about for it, and I bought one of the Wii's right off the shelf during release, and it wasn't until like years later they had the Motion Plus and all of that stuff actually working correctly for the sensitivity.
Yeah.
From like an actual gamer standpoint, I guess that was a big deal for me with that. I think a lot of people see the tablet and they're not sure what to think about that.
Yeah.
That's probably really confusing, kind of hard to get into for some people. Like, is this required? I have to have this? I don't want to do this. Like, I want to play with the Wii. Like, give me the remote back. Like, I think that's really confusing for a lot of people too.
But at the same time, like I recognize that the new thing has a lot of power. I mean, playing the little Lego City Undercover game and holding it up and looking at this.
Yep. Yeah, hold it up and
there's cool stuff there. It's really neat and gimmicky.
Building on that, though, I will say, like, when the Wii U first came out, the thing that pissed me off is, okay, the new iPad wannabe thing is, like, the gimmick or whatever. Yeah, it can only support, how many, 2 or 3 simultaneously?
Yeah.
It can't render to 4. It can't, not everyone can have that. And
I know.
Like, that's the whole console is
exactly
that thing. You can't have 4 of them,
right? And then Microsoft came out with their whole glass idea, and it was just like a big middle finger to that whole concept. Now anybody can bring a tablet in, use it like the Wii U pad.
Yeah, man.
I mean
that was good.
Oh, that was really mean.
Yeah.
So moving on to other like bad news. Blizzard profits have dropped 35%. Blizzard profits have dropped 35%, and yet they still have 7.6 million subs to Warcraft. Now, just for everyone to understand, 7.6 million subs. That is $15 a person, right? That means they have a minimum of $50-something million coming in every single month.
Jesus.
I mean, think about that. Now, I can understand their profits dropping a little bit, but I mean, what would you do with $50 million a month?
Apparently, you rehash the same content in the last 2 expansions and give that out to the players as new.
And make really like racially stereotypical stuff and it's funny because I was at PAX East and there was this whole Blizzard section and I walked past it 20, 30, 40 times. I'm like, oh, choppers. Oh.
I don't even know. Like, I still go to like MMO Champion. Like, it's one of my tabs. I open on my browser just to kind of keep an eye on things, see what's going on. Because I've played it for so long. Like, it's hard to just stop looking at it. I'm appalled and astounded by some of the stuff that's going on. Like, all the classes are now the same. Like, they're doing all this other crazy stuff. They're going back to Draenor. I'm like, you did that in Burning Crusade. Why are we going back? Like,
yeah,
there's so much other lore. Like, and I don't know. I guess for some of the younger players, they didn't quite experience that and stuff. I mean, it's exciting, or like some of the people that are just that huge of like, you know, a fanboy or fangirl, but I don't know. I get tired of doing the same stuff over and over. I mean,
yeah, and I mean, it's kind of baffling to me too. It's like, okay, we already have this whole time travel mechanic built into this from, you know, like early on, the whole
time.
Yeah, it's already in there. Why are we revisiting that? You can put that content in. It's very frustrating, and I'm absolutely disinterested in it. I mean, there is absolutely nothing about this expansion that appeals to me as a longtime player, and that's sad. And the main thing that appealed to me in the last expansion was stupid Pokemon and Warcraft.
Oh my God, yes. First of all,
what? Pokemon and Warcraft?
You missed that?
I would have started playing for that.
I was at BlizzCon when they announced that, and the whole audience was just sitting there head scratching, like, "Are they serious right now?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, this is happening." And everyone's like, well, yes.
And it worked. I was excited about it. I'm like, okay. And I've never even played Pokemon. This was kind of like my cheater way of playing Pokemon. I've never played a single Pokemon game ever. And I was like, okay. And I tried it out. And after a little while, like, so you play and you play and you play, and then you get to a certain point, it levels off. And you have to play like 20 gazillion times to get, anyway. So like, and then it was over, and I never finished the last expansion. I only did about 4 zones in the last expansion. It's kind of sad. So, on a similar note, Dota 2 players now outnumber WoW subscribers.
MOBA games are where it's at. People love it. You don't have to invest time like you do in an MMO, but you invest in the account and you can play any class instead of focusing on one class for 90 levels. So
do you think the whole skill aspect of MOBAs is like it's plus or it's minus?
Like harder than like MMOs and stuff?
Well, like when you play a MOBA, you have to know what you're doing. If not, you get publicly shamed and humiliated and treated like garbage, especially in Dota 2.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, you have things like WoW, which are super casual, and if you don't know what you're doing, you just don't group with anybody and nobody figures it out.
Yeah, you're the level 80 hunter with
exactly. So like, do you think that in this particular case, the skill thing is a plus or a minus? And like, where everybody's making a MOBA now. What's going to happen with that whole field?
You broke up for that whole last sentence.
Oh, I said everybody's making a MOBA now. Where is this thing going to go? Have you guys tried the Infinite Crisis game?
I haven't.
No.
I haven't either. It's been on my computer for 1.5 years. I'm serious. Like, the idea of picking up another MOBA is almost as repellent as the idea of picking up another MMO. Especially
the learning curve and skill curve, and like I don't know anybody else that plays it, so I'm going to be that random guy out there trying to communicate with other teams.
Yeah, and really, who wants who wants Batman to be balanced with Superman? Who wants that? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, you know? So I don't know. I love Smite, and that's pretty much the end of my MOBA interest right now.
I played League for a long time, and I guess they've had a ton of changes recently. And I mean, if I guess I got back into it, it would be Smite or League, because I know a lot of my friends still play both. And then that's what attracted me about WoW for the longest time, is when towards the end of my career, it was arenas. Yeah. Like me and two other friends would go in and just destroy people, and that kind of team cooperative gameplay without the 5-year-old screaming as he shoots you and stuff like that. I mean, that was fun. That's what I liked about League too.
Yeah. Yeah. So the last thing I really wanted to cover here, Steam has gone through a couple of really nasty changes this week. They pulled Earth 2066 from the store based on some bad promotional stuff. Basically, the game did not deliver what it said it was supposed to deliver. And also, the game devs of Towns abandoned their unfinished game after selling 200,000.
I heard about that.
They sold 200,000 copies of their early access game, and then just said, well, we're not going to do this anymore.
Wow. How does that work? Like, do they get sued now, or like,
how
they can't just do that? Like,
evidently they can. And so here's the question. Like Steam for Earth 2066 has they're offering refunds. Right, they're saying no,
okay,
that they didn't deliver, but at the same time, like, and this was actually covered by something that Total Biscuit talked about a while ago. So here's an interesting thing: you guys, when you make your game, you're probably going to enter the greenlight process. True.
True.
Yeah.
So you guys make a new game. You have to go through this incredibly arduous path where you have to get people to support what you're doing, and you have to like get this kind of community involvement, and you have to rally the world to your side so they say that you're good enough, right?
Yep.
Then another company who has one game on Steam that has been selling successfully now can take all their old back catalog of bullshit games for the past 20 something years, and they can put them on Steam without going through the greenlight process, without having anybody approve them. Yes, if you are already an approved distributor on Steam, and you can put anything up, even your old crap. And not only can you put your old crap up, but you can put it up as a new game.
So for shelf prices.
So it gets up on new releases. So when people go and look for new releases, they can see your 15-year-old crappy 2D RPG as opposed to your fantastic new 2D RPG that really is a new release.
I'm pissed.
And then the familiar game studio name would help bury you in that list too.
Exactly. So they throw up 10 crappy things. So let's imagine the next thing. You get your great 2D RPG game up, and then the next day some crappy company throws 20 crappy old games up, and it knocks you off the new release list within 24 hours.
Man, that's a problem, man. That's terrible.
Isn't that?
They should have separate lists for indies.
I didn't even know that was an issue, man.
It is indeed.
I'm enraged now as a developer. God damn it.
Total Biscuit actually did a show on this. And what he's claiming is, and I think this is a legitimate argument, Steam already does moderate its stuff. They claim, well, we're not moderating what goes on the store. But they're lying, because they already do. They already moderate what goes on there, and all they're doing is they're maintaining a bad status quo, which is if you already had a game on our system, you can put any of your old junk up. So, like, one thing I've kind of pondered is, and the chat room just pointed out I got to bleep myself. I do. That's terrible. I got to bleep myself. And now I lost my train of thought because I read the chat room.
Falco disconnected too.
Oh, he did?
I think I'm here. I think
I lost your video. Yeah. There we go. You're coming back. Ah, there you are.
It does that.
It's probably my freaking internet.
Mac.
But anyway, so I mean, my recommendation is that Steam allows other companies to set up Steam stores. They allow anybody in right? But then they allow other people to moderate. That way, Rock, Paper, Shotgun can have their own Steam store and get a piece of all the games that they sell, and they moderate which games are good enough to be in the Rock, Paper, Shotgun Steam store.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It'd be more money for everybody. I don't know why they wouldn't do that.
It wouldn't be any more money for me, and I came up with this damn idea.
Man, you gotta quit saying this in public.
So anyway, I'm going to link to a couple of articles here that basically talk about the stuff that's been going on, but I think there's a good case to be made for more moderation in the Steam store.
Inspiration.
So really, I've got a question to ask you. This is a very, very serious question.
Okay.
2D RPG, really? Really?
Well.
Yeah, absolutely.
2D/3D.
No. Set that argument aside.
And it's a next-gen 2D
I mean, seriously, this is an arguable stance. Like you have chosen like one of the most.
Oh, it absolutely is.
You've chosen one of those bland gaming genres in the world.
I mean, there's a lot of argument for that, and especially like with the old Final Fantasy games, where it's a random battle in the turn-based. But we've actually done some things that I think have taken that in a much more action-oriented direction. That's not so bland.
Yeah.
Like this.
A lot more
this
what
last
modern gamers
bit,
expect. Like,
right.
Yeah.
So we are aware of that. Like the last stuff that we've been working on, man. Actually, we added the ability to jump, to dash, to like. It's starting to get almost like God of War, man, or some of the things we're implementing are from like a Mega Man X game. These are really action-y things, and we have like we have a screenshot somewhere of like particle blood just like flying everywhere, and you're like beating the shit out of these little goblins. So in a way, I think that we're kind of addressing like some of the
concerns, I guess, with like the older style kind of games. I mean,
being not as action oriented,
Yeah,
like turn-based and grindy, and people were worried about that. I mean, one of the biggest things, I guess, for me, in the justifications in the 2D RPG is that I guess we grew up in the kind of wonderland that was like the 90s and early 2000s RPGs and like PlayStations like Final Fantasy, Legends of Dragoon, all those kind of great storytelling games and everything. And one of the first things that ES was long before there was any gameplay was a story. And right now, I mean, we've got this humongous design.
True. We've put a lot of time into this story. Like
it is a story, and we wanted people to be able to play through it and be interactive and be immersive. And I don't think we could come up with a better way to do that. I mean,
if I may say, this storyline for anyone who's ever played a 2D RPG is going to be like, holy shit! Like they have never played. There's no way that you have played a 2D RPG with this kind of story depth or just detail that we put into it, into the medium itself.
Trying not to spoilers.
Yeah, not either.
Are you gonna have Alan Dean Foster do the novelization?
Yes. That's a Kickstarter stretch goal.
That would actually be kind of awesome now that I think about it.
Yeah, it would be. We very much do appreciate that argument. So like that's why we're trying to take.
It's so hard to set us apart from it too. Like
the artistic aspects, the musical aspects, and things like that, but then also factor in like current generation gameplay and things that you would expect, because like most people don't want to play like Pokemon anymore, where it's like, well, okay, people do want to play Pokemon, but like turn-based, going through all the menus, random battles and stuff, and we do appreciate that. But like, we'll still have the environment and the atmosphere of like these really old school classic RPGs with like nice lighting and stuff. But the gameplay itself is much more modernized, and especially Tyler's like World of Warcraft expertise and stuff. We're really gameplay wise, we're reaching into a lot more modern games than we necessarily are with like the art style and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, with a lot of the stuff too, like you have like the black mage, white mage, all these kind of pre-concepts that people have of like 2D RPGs that like when going into it, you're going to have these classes, and it's always kind of like cookie cutter. Like our game isn't like that. I mean, we will have spell users and things like that, but it's all going to be of the ES flavor, the ES variety, to where it's unique. I mean,
well, and I also feel like you guys are a little bit blessed. This is an era of I'm okay with crappy graphics, and I'm not saying your graphics in particular are crappy, but
the artists
but what I am saying is that is that you don't I don't feel like modern games have to break the technology barrier.
See, and that's another thing too. Is actually a lot of these pixel games are starting to appeal. Like they're trendy again. You know, like they're new. They're feeling like it's retrofitted and it's becoming almost cool again. A lot of these like 2D style pixel games are actually
sword and sorcery and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's like a new artistic style almost to go retro like that. So we are lucky in the fact that we're on that wave and we're following in the footsteps of some other really successful pixel style 2D RPGs.
Yeah.
Although I will say none of them have tried to fuse like the pixel art with the dynamic lighting and the like next
or
gen
the physics or the particles or
it's been like pure pixel, whereas we've tried to be like, okay, pixel with like modern lighting,
right? And none of them are for the Dreamcast. None of them.
That's no matter what, man, we got that. I feel like Sega should be paying us. Like, what if this is really big and we single-handedly resurrect the Dreamcast?
What, you should talk to GameStop. You should go, look, we're about to release this game. You need to stock up on old consoles and be ready for us.
Yeah.
So, you talked about other platforms, talked about the Ouya and everything. Do you how do you feel approaching obscure approaching obscure hardware? Do you feel like there is a market there that you can tap, or is it just kind of like your own intellectual egotism?
Because we can.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Like at first, to be honest, it was my own narcissism, the fact I could get it running on the Dreamcast. But believe it or not, there is a pretty big homebrew Dreamcast audience. And those are the guys that are actually pushing us in our game more than the other platforms. We're getting the most publicity from the Dreamcast and the Ouya crowd because we stand out in those crowds. They're really starved for good games, and those are the guys who are the tight-knit community who are like, wow, this is a quality RPG for our platform. And those are the guys who will go out of your way to promote you. So actually the smaller, like more niche-y kind of platforms are where we're getting the most audience and the most support from, which is kind of counterintuitive. But if there are any other indie developers out there, I mean, I would like to mention that fact that's kind of like a phenomena that we've stumbled upon. It's actually been really helpful in our campaigning.
Yeah,
the Ouya, the biggest, I guess, game that they sold was some incredibly low number of like 7,000 or 9,000 or something like that. It was like their biggest hit of a game that they've had in a while.
Right.
And we're like, we've got more subscribers than that on YouTube. Like, we could do better than that. So
we are narcissists, by the way.
There's a reason we get along. So let's pretend that everything with your Kickstarter goes fabulous. You end up, you get a year to make your game. It comes out. It's moderately successful. I'll be honest. It might not be incredibly successful, but let's not call it a failure. Let's say you're moderately successful.
We made a game, man. We did the dream.
My childhood dream has come to fruition.
Okay, what are you going to do now, dudes?
One of two things will happen. Either this will launch us into a career of like, this launched our studio and now we have a game under our belt and we actually are making revenue off of this game where we can make the next game, or we go right back to what we're doing. We go right back to our
you become miserable alcoholics and
exactly. We go right back to the desk job like we are now. We hate our lives and we work every day to make the new Kickstarter to make the next game. Cycle repeat.
Okay, but I'm writing the next story, okay?
All right. The thing you should have asked is what happens if you fail the Kickstarter, because that's what Tyler and I were.
We try. We're so positive about this. We try not to think about that because I mean, we don't want to be like self-defeatist. We don't want to be like, well, what if we do fail? Like, we won't.
Let me tell you something.
Keep telling each other.
Here's some good news. Almost everyone that I have ever interacted with on any kind of professional level, on any kind of an interview, or having them on the show, their Kickstarters have not failed. So there you go. I am offering you my blessing. Your Kickstarter is going to succeed. And if it doesn't, I will berate every single person in my audience until they listen to everything that you have to say.
Very much appreciated.
Because if you fail, I fail. Well, guys, it has been a real pleasure. It was really pleasant meeting you. I appreciate you experiencing a little bit of this intellectual mumbo jumbo that I like digging in each week. And I will be happy to publicize your Kickstarter when it's going, and happy to publicize your game once it's going. And I have also told you that I will introduce you to some of my friends that are on the internet who might be able to help you get some additional exposure.
Thank you so much.
And since you're here in town, that's kind of awesome. And I look forward to the next IGDA meeting. And you're bringing the beer, right?
Absolutely. You interviewed us, man. We'll bring the beer.
we'll pick up your tab at least.
We got you, man. We got you.
It's all that matters. Anyway, audience, have a great night. It was fantastic having you, and we will see you next week. Say good night, guys.
Good night. See ya.
You've been listening to Core Elements, exploring gaming one element at a time. A listener-supported podcast. See the show notes or get more information at coreelementshow.com or leave us a voicemail at 256-763-0455.